Welcome to the Pharmacist Voice Podcast, episode 262. I'm your host, Kim Newlove. My guest today is Dr. Christina Fontana. She is the host of She Rises into Desire podcast and the Healers in Healthcare show, which I consider to be a YouTube podcast. This is the fourth episode in my Pharmacist Podcasters Series. If you are new to this series, welcome. My guests are all pharmacist podcasters, and they all talk about their podcasts, including why they started it, who their audience is, what's in it for the audience, why someone should listen, what they, the host, get out of podcasting, what they want their audience to do with the information from their podcast once they have listened, where you can find their podcast, advice for new podcasters, and more. And by more, I mean there will be some sidebar conversations too. We like to talk. Podcasters like to talk. I'm sure you know that. I enjoy those sidebar conversations. And just so you know, links to the first 3 episodes in this series are in the show notes, which you can find at thepharmacistvoice.com. Click on the podcast tab and then find episode 262. This is episode 262. The purpose of this whole entire series is to inspire you to use your voice. Whether you're thinking about becoming a podcast host, you're already a podcast host, maybe you're going to be a podcast guest, or maybe you're a pharmacy professional who wants to improve your public speaking skills. After all, knowing your audience is not unique to being a podcaster. It's important whether you're a podcaster, a podcast guest, teaching a pharmacy student, or talking to your staff during a meeting. Knowing your audience is important. And by the way, if you are interested in starting a podcast, I can help. I teach a self-paced podcast planning course for pharmacy professionals, and I'm available also as a one-on-one coach. I'm available to coach you one-on-one. You can find a link to that self-paced online course on my website. Again, that is thepharmacistvoice.com. Just click on the Store tab and look for the podcasting course. You can also contact me about private coaching using the contact form on my website, thepharmacistvoice.com. Just click on the Contact tab. Working with me one-on-one will cut the learning curve and speed the whole process up. I'd love to work with you. At this time, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about my guest, Dr. Christina Fontana. Then we'll dive right into the interview. Dr. Christina Fontana is also known as the Pharmacist Coach. In fact, I don't know if you know this, her website is pharmacistcoach.com. Christina is a pharmacist, a holistic healer, a rapid transformation business coach, a speaker, and a 5-time author. In fact, on the author piece, you can hear her talk about her book, Beyond the Counter, Elevating into Heart-Centered Healthcare Through Entrepreneurship, on episode 226 of the Pharmacist Voice podcast. Great interview. Christina helps spiritually driven women to reignite your light and shine in your brilliance, confidence, and true essence. She started her entrepreneurial journey 12 years ago being disempowered, homeless, broke, with a rare eating disorder, PTSD, and anxiety, and has since transformed, turning her pain into purpose, empowering women all over the world to step into more purpose, power, and prosperity. Over the last 12 years, Dr. Christina Fontana has been providing uplifting, transformational content through her YouTube videos, books, courses, programs, and conferences. Her mission is to empower more healers and business owners to unlock their innate gifts to create a domino effect of healing on the world. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Dr. Christina Fontana. Hi, Christina. Welcome back to the Pharmacist Voice podcast. How are you?
Good. I am so excited to be here with you again in the dead of winter. This is a bright spot in my day today. It's snowing here in Pittsburgh. So yeah, just really looking forward to having this conversation with you.
The pleasure's all mine. I am so happy to have you back again to discuss how you use your voice as a pharmacist podcaster this time, instead of a pharmacist author. So let's dive in. You have at least one podcast, and
Mhm.
you have appeared on many podcasts. So, first, I would like to have you kind of identify which podcast of yours that we'll be talking about today.
Yeah, so I have the She Rises into Desire podcast, which is a lot of the solo cast episodes of me sharing a little bit more about the things that I love talking about. I'm a huge nerd, so I love talking about spirituality, business, all of those, energy, everything like that. So that's more of like a solo cast. And then I do have the Healers in Healthcare show, so I'm game to talk about either one, whatever you feel like you want to dive into. Where that's actually a Facebook Live in my Facebook group every month that I bring on a new practitioner, a healer in healthcare, a pharmacist typically, who comes on and showcases what they do as an entrepreneur. Because there is just so many, there's so many different people that, and I know that your audience can't see the book, but I'm holding up my book of, moving beyond the counter. I think that it's important that pharmacists see how much is possible in the realm of entrepreneurship, because as pharmacists, we need to see things not just one time to prove that it's true, but like, hey, look at all these people who are doing these incredible things. So I love highlighting those type of pharmacists who are really out of the box, non-traditional thinkers who have done this before and they're growing and scaling profitable, impactful businesses.
What a great opportunity for me and my audience to learn from you, not just with one podcast, but with two. I will do my best to incorporate both podcasts, and I'll be really specific when I'm asking a question about one versus the other.
Hmm.
All right. Well, we've got the name of both of the podcasts. Number one, She Rises into Desire podcast, and the Healers and Healthcare show, which I usually find on your YouTube channel. Is
Yep.
there another way that publicly people can access that?
So I actually do have my VA, my assistant, they always put it onto my blog. So if you go on my website and you click blog, they should be separated. So it should have podcast with the She Rises into Desire that should have all those episodes. And then the YouTube channel, also gets translated into a blog, but I segment that through playlists on YouTube. So that's super easy to find.
Nice. You mentioned your YouTube channel. I think that's a great place for anybody to get to know you.
Yeah.
Did you want to go ahead and say what your handle is there, the at symbol?
Yeah, so it's at Christina Fontana. If you just go into YouTube and type in Christina Fontana or Healers in Healthcare show, you'll see. I think we did about a year. I think we're coming up on a year. But obviously, I'm going to not be doing that for the next few months because I'm having a baby. I'm 32 weeks pregnant right now as we're recording this.
How exciting! I'm
Yeah,
excited for you.
we're pumped.
Awesome. Now, when it comes to the She Rises into Desire podcast, I know you actually syndicate that also to your YouTube channel, but
Mhm.
just as an individual podcast, who's the audience for that one?
For me, I essentially serve two subsets of clients. So I do holistic healing and I serve spiritually driven women who are wanting to release self sabotage so that they can step into more freedom, empowerment, and confidence. So that's one subset that I want to really target with that podcast, but also the healer in healthcare. Anybody, can really listen to that and glean so much from it, because a lot of that the topics that I talk about do relate to business, because I feel that, I've been in business for 12 years now. And what I've come to discover is it's not all about strategy. It's actually about your embodiment and how you see yourself and how you show up and shine, as I say, in your true essence, to be able to connect with those people who really need the medicine that you have, the medicine, quote unquote, because, we're pharmacists, so we typically dispense pills and medication. But the work that I do is multidimensional, meaning it has many layers to it to help people truly bring out their God-given gifts to impact the world.
I believe you said there's some overlap between the two podcasts, the
Yep.
audience, that is. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I feel like we're going to be talking definitely about both of these at the same time. And then the Healers and Healthcare podcast, that would be, like you said, healers in healthcare, who are being entrepreneurs, right?
Right. Absolutely.
I heard a little woof. Would you like to introduce our third guest here, or the third party here?
Well, there's actually 4 people because I have Lindsay in my belly. I have my little dachshund over here, but she just did a little woof. Right, Pen? So Penny is she's my first baby. I know that I didn't give birth to her, but she's my first child.
Nice.
So yeah, she's here with us today.
Awesome. Just wanted to introduce her because I know there's going to be at least one dog lover out there listening to this who says, "Oh, I know I heard a woof. I wonder what kind of dog that is." Now you know, it's a dachshund.
She's a little dachshund. She's a redhead, so.
Very nice. All right, back to podcasting here. Now, when it comes to your audiences, there's got to be a reason that they're coming to you. So, when it comes to the She Rises in Desire podcast, what's in it for the audience?
I think the number one thing is probably hope. That's what I strive to leave people with. I know that, I've experienced a lot of different highs and lows in this entrepreneurial journey, and I know that it can be really challenging, even if you're not an entrepreneur. The everyday things that we experience. I mean, COVID, the recession, all of these different things that we experience, in addition to trauma or whatever we've had, whatever life experiences we've had in the past. I want people to know that there is hope and healing, and I think that is why I'm so open and I share my story, because I think that oftentimes we can feel isolated and we can't heal in isolation. So I think that people come to me specifically because they want to feel inspired. They want to know that their dreams are possible and within reach. They want to have hope. And then obviously practical things too. So I kind of try to blend both of those elements of the authenticity and really helping people see what's possible, but also giving them digestible, practical tips that they can walk away with and hopefully implement in their business or life.
That's a great answer. And my next question was going to be, once your audience hears your message, what do you want them to do with the information? But what I just heard you say was that you want them to have hope and you want them to implement those things that they are hopeful for. Would you like to add anything to that? And if I'm wrong, please feel free to point it out.
No, that's exactly it. And I think that, the She Rises into Desire, to me, the work that I do is about helping people elevate their energy, because when we're stuck in these vicious cycles of whether it's addictive patterns or guilt or shame or whatever we're holding on to from the past, an old identity, an old trauma or wound, then it can feel really limiting to what we're able to accomplish or how we're able to impact other people, whether it's in our business or family, whatever that might be. And so the work that I do is really releasing and helping people to elevate into their desires, knowing that that's possible. So I wanted to kind of talk about that too, because people might be like, what does She Rises into Desire mean? That's what it means to me, because again, I've been there. I've been there many times at rock bottom. There have been many rock bottoms in my life. So yeah, just want to give people that hope.
You got to know that there's actually something that's accidentally happening too. There was an episode where you were talking about how your goal was to talk to 200 people in a year. You had recorded that and released it before I heard it. But before I heard it, I had invited you to be on my podcast. It's almost like you attracted me to invite you to come on there. Because I remember all I did was say, I have a note in my production schedule to invite you back on the show.
Right.
What would you like to talk about? And then I'm like, would you like to talk about your podcast? So would you like to talk about how you put things out there that you are hopeful for?
I love that. Yeah. So I am very intuitive. I'm also very, I have logic obviously too, but then I'm also very intuitive. So I'm always listening to kind of the guidance from God's source spirit as to what should I be doing in my business, right? I always say God is my CEO because I'm a human being the vessel for a greater purpose. That's really why I'm here. It's not me. I am a vehicle for something much, much greater. And so I listen to that. And so I saw one of my friends here in Pittsburgh, and he was like, he had this list and it said all these audiences he impacted. And, I kind of kept scrolling, and I was taking a walk the one day, and I love walking at dusk. because it's quiet, it's still, and in that peacefulness, I feel like I can access that inner voice. And I felt this impulse that said, like my word is impact for this year. And so I guess I wanted to just describe like how I'm getting these downloads. It's in those moments of stillness, and then I just go for it. And I'm like, okay, this is the assignment. This is what I'm doing. And I don't know if I'm going to hit 200. I have no idea. I could potentially like not, I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to be able to take care of this child and do podcasts. Am I going to bring her on the podcast? I don't know, but I'm playful with it. And so I put that out there. I put that frequency out there in a lot of different ways, meaning posts, or I feel into the energy of in meditation, in those quiet moments of already having that desire, right? Because I know that through impacting all of these different audiences and having the privilege to do that, so many things are going to open up, right? And my goal, my mission is to be a beacon of light for other people. Like I said, that hope, that inspiration, that's primary. So I just go with it and kind of put that energy out there in a lot of different ways. Actually, the last episode I have on my podcast, I think I even gave a framework of how to bring these ideas to implementation, or bring these divine downloads to implementation for your big dreams. Because I know that there's so many people that are so talented and so gifted, and sometimes it's like bringing that idea to fruition there's a big gap because of self-doubt or all these different things that have happened, that I kind of alluded to before.
Yeah, the allowing piece. You have to allow good things to happen to you. And I feel like you're putting this hope out there and you're saying, I'm allowing it to happen. Invite me on your podcast, or you're putting posts out there. Invite me to speak to your group. I want to impact. I want to impact. I want to impact 200 people. And you're allowing it to happen. And I'm part of it, which is cool.
Yeah, well, thank you for, for listening to your impulses or taking notes or whatever prompted you to reach out, because here we are. And yeah, I want to impact 200 audiences, whether it's through podcasting, a virtual summit, in-person events, whatever God, wherever he wants to put me, I guess. So just a willing vessel over here.
That's a good explanation of what you want your audience to do with the information once they hear your message. And thank you again for elaborating on something very specific that you personally hope to have happen. It's kind of like you're practicing what you preach. You're giving people hope, but you also have hope too.
Mm-hmm.
But what's in it for you to have a podcast?
I will be honest, sometimes it's just cathartic. And I'm like, because think about it. Sometimes, even with my husband, I love him to death, but I'm like talking to him. There goes my Long Island accent. It came out just then. So I'm talking to him and he's like not listening, right? So I feel like maybe it's an opportunity for me to be present with myself. There's no distractions, there's no interruptions. And I feel like I'm speaking out into this void that, again, I don't know who I'm impacting. I'm not sure how many people or what's happening, but it's kind of sometimes cathartic to talk through things. So it's almost like an audio journal in a way. So, that's more the She Rises into Desire podcast. But obviously, to get people to know, like, and trust me, I want people to feel safe. I want them to feel like I'm relatable, that, I know it's easy to be like, oh my God, like this girl who, she's XYZ, like you look at these pictures, but I'm really just a human being who, I want to, I guess, not create that reality, but like really be humbled to say, I can help you. I'm not this like, yeah, these pictures that you see with like the microphone and whatever. Yes, I do that because I know that it shows, expertise and all of that, but I want people to know I'm human. Right. So I think that it's kind of that more intimate part of me that I share. Like I shared about my fertility struggles in one of the episodes. And, like even in some of the blogs, like I shared about my pregnancy journey. So I think that transparency is important, and then to just grow that relationship, that know, like, and trust factor. So whether you're watching me on a YouTube video or listening on a podcast or you're reading in a blog, it's going to be the same. It's going to be my true essence shining through.
I hear a lot of relationship building comments, like you're
Yes.
trying to build that relationship with your audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's what it is. Like I've been on a lot of podcasts, and I had somebody recently who, like, I could feel the energy of, like, he wanted me to be his client, and I'm like, that's fine, but like, I don't know you. That would be like, okay, Kim, am I gonna hire someone that I know, or like some random stranger, right? You have to develop that relationship. And I think it's important to not rush that process, because it's just like you're not gonna marry someone on the first date. You're gonna say, okay, let me try one of their freebies. Let me try one of their offers. Let me read their book. You and I have talked about this on the last podcast. So it's really, I think it's not about like, oh, I want this client right away. It's okay, you're developing the relationship. Maybe you're giving a lot of value in the beginning so that they can trust you. Like I consider it an honor when someone energetically gives, it, like, is a client or buys something, whether it's $15 or 5,000 or whatever the investment is. And so I want them to feel safe with me. So that's really important.
There are people who will have a different answer. I appreciate you sharing yours. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we kind of already talked about where we can find your podcast. It's definitely syndicated to your YouTube channel, but where else can people find your podcast? She Rises into Desire podcast.
So I actually just took that off today because I realized it wasn't complete. So you can find the Healers in Healthcare show on YouTube, and I figured let's make it simple and streamline everything over to my blog. So literally, if you go onto pharmacistcoach.com, click on blog and then podcast, you'll see all of those episodes there. So it's super easy. And actually, if you want to keep track of the 200 episodes of all, I actually made one blog for that too, to keep everything streamlined. So you can kind of see as I'm going through this year, my virtual assistant's going to help me put, like, ours will be on there too, right? So she's going to put the link.
Thank you.
And that'll be available. So that way everything's just kind of, streamlined in one place.
I appreciate you including our conversation with your audience.
Gosh,
that's great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Very good.
Yep.
All right. Now I'm going to back up a few steps. I want to go back specifically to the Healers in Healthcare show, which is on YouTube, and talk a little bit. We already talked about the audience being healers in healthcare. And we talked a little bit about what's in it for the audience. You said basically to show some role models in the industry. Right. But is there anything you'd like to add to that?
So I think that, like I said, a lot of more like logical type A, A plus B equals C, all of that. Like, we're very logical. We need to see that proof. And I am too, in a way.
Like that, totally.
I marry both, like I said before, the logic and the intuition. But it needs to, sometimes people need to see things. Oh, wow. And Ivardo, as an example, she's doing financial coaching. Wow, I didn't even realize that was available. Then you have someone like Trish Franchetic, who is doing like hypnosis and those different things. So I think just being able to kind of show the variety of, and personalities too, not just knowledge based, but also there's introverts, there's extroverts, there's all different types of people. I want to span, and bring on as many diverse people as I can to show, hey, if you need inspiration, you need somebody who is, who looks like you, or who has, a son who has certain challenges, or a daughter or whatever. Like, this is your role model here. And so I want you to know what's possible for you. So I think that I'm only one representation. I'm a white female in Pittsburgh. I want people to kind of see that there's a lot of different variety to entrepreneurship. You don't have to look like me. You don't have to talk or emote like me. A lot of people are like, oh, like they look outside of themselves and they're like, oh, well, this person's doing that. I'm like, no, be you, be your unique self. That's where you're going to magnetize the people who are ready to work with you. So I think it's important to highlight that too. Like, maybe people don't want to follow me, and that's okay too. Like, maybe they want to follow someone else, but find that person who resonates with you, and that's okay.
One of the things I like about the variety that you have on that Healers and Healthcare podcast on YouTube is that you have people who have certain strengths, right? Not every single pharmacist has a strength that's the same. You mentioned a few minutes ago about how you have a virtual assistant who puts things on your blog for you.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Just talking about the fact that we can't do it all and we need to try to spend as much time in our area of expertise. That's something you have the opportunity to talk to people about in the Healers and Healthcare podcast, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I'm actually hosting, I don't know when our episode is going to be coming out, but Simplify and Streamline, and it's all about that. It's a 2-day workshop I'm doing next week with my support coach, and we're essentially helping people to literally simplify and streamline your business because you can't do it all. Like right now I hired somebody from Fiverr to help me build. Are you familiar with Fiverr?
I am. I'm not
Okay.
on it. I'm not on it as a gig for hire, but I
Okay.
am familiar with it. Yeah.
It's really great for and we're going to be sharing about this next week too, for these like little side projects. This guy is going to help me build essentially an opt-in page that's going to lead to a sales funnel that will lead to one of my courses while I'm on maternity leave, to keep that, the sales rolling in. And so I don't have to do that, right? I paid him X amount of dollars. He's going to go run with it. He's done 6,000 gigs. I vetted him. And so I think the delegating and staying in your zone of genius is really important. I love how you're highlighting that here. Yeah.
As a business coach and a mindset coach, you have the opportunity to kind of position yourself as an expert, even though you're interviewing an expert. I think that's pretty cool. I need to watch more of your episodes. The one that you just talked about with streamlining, I need to watch that totally because
Yeah.
I have all kinds of projects and I know exactly what I want to do. And
Right.
sometimes I think by the time I explain it to somebody else, I could have just done it myself. And you're
I
shaking
totally
your
get
head,
it.
but I
Yes.
need to start letting go and hiring people to
Yes.
do these projects.
Well, I think of the 3 T's: team, tech, and tools. So like how can you like pretty much, so as an example, not to take up too much time on this, but with this guy that I just hired from Fiverr, I have these little kind of like, I have a landing page, I have this, I have that, it's all made. I just got on the phone with him for 20 minutes. I said, this is what I need you to do. And then he's going to do it and do all the tech stuff. And I can go back in and say, okay, let's tweak this. Let's revise that. It would have taken me way longer to do. So I think it's thinking about it that way too. Like, okay, it's not set in stone. Somebody can, you can go back in and say, you know what, I don't like how we did that, but it is going to save time. And that to me, like, I need to be focusing on the income generating activities, the needle movers that are going to help me expand my reach and connect with new people. So I think thinking about that too, because I know that that control part of like, well, I can just do it myself. Like, totally get that. I really, I can validate that too.
This is so true of all entrepreneurs. What you just said, you have to focus on the income generating activities and
Hmm.
start delegating out those other ones. You need to surround yourself with people who can do the things that you are not great at, or that you do not have time to do, or that do not make you money. People just need to hear that because I needed to hear that. So I am speaking to my former self by putting that out there. Thank you for
Your
hopping
former
in.
self from 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it.
Well, I mean, gosh, I made my first website, for example,
Me too.
back in
Yeah.
2018. In
Wow.
2020, I delegated that out.
Yeah.
So my former self, meaning my first website generating self, needed to hear that, it's okay to let somebody else do that. There are
Yeah.
a lot of things that I need to give up, but it is a stepwise process and you can't do all of it all at the same time. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We're
I
getting
hear
off
you.
topic. Sorry. All right. Now, once those listeners, that audience from the Healers and Healthcare podcast, hear those messages, see those role models, what do you want them to do with that information?
Honestly, again, like reach out to whoever's resonating with you. So if are resonating with somebody, because I'm, obviously extrovert. If you're like, hey, I'm an introvert and I want to go connect with Melissa Turner, who I know she's identified herself as an introvert, go talk to her. Like, that's okay. Go connect with her and follow her and learn from her. I think the biggest thing that I love doing, I'm kind of an investigator too in my own way. I love watching really excellent people. So like as an example, I've been watching ice skating on YouTube. There's this Kamila Valieva. She is the most I swear to God, she's the best skater in the world. Like just the technique and all of the things that she does. And I listen to people and I'm like, okay, what do they do? How do they practice? What are their behaviors? Then I watch things like Holiday Baking Championship, where these people are competing under a time crunch to create these beautiful desserts. And like they are so good. So I'm just like I'm always learning from those, even though it's like a relaxing thing. I'm like, this applies to entrepreneurship because of the things that they're saying. Like when they hit up against a challenge, how do they deal with it? All of those things, I think I just learned so much from a lot of these people who are, the best of the best. And I think back to kind of our point about like having frames of reference for people who have either created success or like absorbing whether it's content or podcasts or books or just kind of like dialing into what is it that makes this person so great. I think you can learn a lot from that.
Nice point. Nice point. I appreciate you sharing that. Now, when it comes to the Healers and Healthcare podcast, I want to ask you the what's in it for you question, but I already mentioned earlier that I kind of feel like you assert yourself as a thought leader in business and mindset coaching. So, am I on the right track? What do you get out of this?
It's an audience building activity, number one, right? So I want to bring as many people as possible. It's available on YouTube for the replay, but if you want to actively engage, I want people coming into my Monetize Your Magic Facebook group. And again, part of its impact, right? But also it's a way for people, again, with that relationship building, for them to know, like, and trust me. I'm always doing like giveaways and providing value and trying to, do everything I can to support people in that group. And maybe they never buy from me and maybe they do. And that's okay. I'm just like, okay, let's all get together because I want to, I want to expose people to some different things that maybe they're not used to, or just like when you have a sweater, right, that you try on, you go into a store and you're like, do I like that? Let me try it on. Let me see if that works. And if not, then put it back on the shelf. That's fine too. But I think that's exciting for me to have this ability to impact those, there's almost 3,000 people in that, and they're not just pharmacists, but 3,000 entrepreneurs in that group. So I think that's a huge kind of like ripple effect or benefit. And I'm hoping maybe that if an opportunity comes along and someone's like, hey, we need a speaker. Oh, I just saw Christina post about this, right?
Yeah, podcasts can lead to speaking opportunities at conferences, other podcasts, YouTube channels, etc. What are some of the opportunities for public speaking that have come out of you having both of these podcasts?
So I got invited to an in-person summit for June. I actually, it's just funny. So it's called MHA. It's like a big conference. They wanted me to go down and speak in Orlando. And I'm like, when is it? Oh, it's like March 9th or whatever it was. I'm like, that's my due date. I can't come this year. But I don't even, that was actually a recommendation from a pharmacist. And I kept trying to say, like, who was it? Who was it? Because I wanted to personally thank whoever it was. And the guy never got back to me. So I think it's just good things are going to happen. And this is for everybody to just like, again, like uplift you, give you hope. Good things are going to happen with persistence, with leading with an open heart that is there to serve. Like when you have a good intention, love is the most powerful force in the world. So when you lead from that energy of service, the good things are going to happen to you rather than focusing on like the short term. This is the goal, like, expand it a little bit more. Entrepreneurship is a long game. It's relationship building. A lot of the themes we talked about here today. So I think don't lose hope. If that is like, if you do a launch and something, you don't get the clients you thought you would, or whatever that might be. I think it's, you're planting seeds and you're doing good in the world. And I think that's really why we became pharmacists, right? To make an impact, to help patients. And so just be encouraged that you are doing that.
I would add to that, don't bury the lead either. If you have something that you want to say it first, come right out, and then, you can add on to that. But there's so many people, I feel like they get on podcasts and they start, I don't want to say rambling, but they don't get to the point. And I feel like for you, I don't feel that at all. There's a lot of things that you say, a lot of different topics in your podcast, but I don't feel like you bury the lead. You give pointers, you give lists. I love it when you give a good list. But I would say that I feel kind of like you're saying, like, if you have something to share, just share it.
Right. Be direct, and, don't be afraid to, like, I think a lot of people too this is like a whole separate topic, but they're afraid to, like, oh, I can't give the farm away. It's like, okay, but you can give some information, but does that person know how to implement it? That's why they need you. Do they know the blind spots that, like, probably not, right? So don't hold yourself back. Like, don't be like, oh, I got to hide my cards here. Like, again, I think it's important to share what you know, and, lead and invite people to a workshop or make an offer. That's okay too. It's really comes down to building relationships and sharing what you know.
Absolutely. I love that advice. Build those relationships. That is one of the most important things about podcasting. There's a lot of people out there that talk about starting a podcast, and you've already given some great advice just now.
Yep.
What other information would you like to share for people who are thinking about starting a podcast, or for new podcasters?
So I would say, so I created mine in a day because I was like, again, download, boom, there it is. And I was just like, I didn't overthink it. I think that's where we get into trouble sometimes. We're like overthinking, like, oh, I don't want to pick the wrong thing. I'm tied to this. But I would say to, if like the tech is kind of bogging you down, again, we're going to be going over that and simplify and streamline a little bit more about that. But I think that, go with what are you most passionate about as far as like a general topic. So what could you just have a microphone, here you go, here's a stage, boom, what would you talk about? That would be a prompt for you. It's like, because passion, I was telling my husband too about this last night. I go, because you're passionate, that's when the energy comes through. That's when you're going to really have that kind of internal drive to keep consistent with it. Because again, people need to have that consistency of like, oh, I'm seeing, there goes Christina again. People are probably like so sick of me by now, like on whatever platform, but like I'm purposely showing up consistently because again, that's building trust unconsciously. And we trust brands that are consistent, that have a stable foundation that we know we can lean into. So I think I would just say that, like, pick whatever it is. If it's, you love knitting or you love whatever that is, just go for it. And Chat GPT is actually really helpful. AI, if you go and say, type in and you say, what are some catchy podcast names? You can use AI and they'll give you, and you could be like, oh, okay. Then you go reference and say, does somebody already have this podcast? So you can use technology to help you come up with some of these things if you reach like a mental block. So I think that's helpful.
What a timely suggestion. I love that, ChatGPT. I just used it for the first time in June of 2023. I was not on board with it, haven't used it too much, but that is a great use for it, coming up with a catchy podcast name.
Specific. Yeah, you have to be specific with it and say, like, okay, I need 3 or however many, like 5, pick a number, and it's like, brrr, it like comes up with it right away.
Wow.
Try it out. It's amazing.
I might have to do that after we get off this call.
Yeah. If you get stuck and you're like, what should I make the name? And you describe it a little bit. So like, what's the podcast about? You have to give a little bit of detail, and then it'll come up with really cool titles. You can do this for email subject lines, for newsletters. I mean, it's amazing.
Christina Fontana, this is such great information. I feel like I've learned more about you, your business coaching skills, so much. This has been more than what I asked for. You really deliver
Oh,
every time I have you on the podcast. Thank you.
oh, that
Now,
just made my whole day. Oh.
oh, I love talking to you. You have so much to offer. Thank you for being on the podcast. As we start to wrap this up, I wanted to ask, do you have anything that you want to promote other than your baby coming shortly? Anything coming
Yeah.
up in 2024 that you'd like to promote?
Yeah, so I am kind of just taking a little bit of time, which is hard for somebody who I'm like you again, consistency, and I have things in place already for, my virtual assistant Iris. I'm like, "Hey, can you make sure that we're sharing these podcasts?" So like you might be one of them, right? Every Wednesday we're going to be dripping that out, and she knows what to do. The process is set in place. So I am going to keep posting content. It won't be me, but it'll be one of my team members helping me out. But I will be, probably doing some more launches. I hope to do another Healers in Healthcare conference. That would be really amazing. I don't know when that's going to happen, but in the meantime, I do have a ton of pre-recorded workshops, programs, YouTube videos, free content. So, if you're kind of like, I don't know where to start, just check out YouTube, the podcast, and then you'll kind of be led to different things based upon the episodes that you're interested in. So just go with the flow and see what's there.
All right, 2024 is going to be a different kind of a year for you. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
it's all good. It's just there's going to be you finding your new normal, and I'm going to be along for the ride. I do enjoy your podcast. She Rises into Desire is something that I've listened to more. There's only 37 episodes, I believe, and I've listened to that more than the Healers and Healthcare podcast. But I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to just seeing your content. I enjoy your YouTube channel because I feel like there's just a lot on there.
Yeah.
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 So I'll be
Huge
watching.
nerd, like I said. I
Well,
own it. Well, thank you so much,
yes.
Kim. You're such a beautiful host, and I love you're such a great listener. You really tune into people, and I think that's one of your gifts. So I want to just acknowledge you for that.
Thank you. You just made my day.
A lot of love on this podcast, everybody.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to having you back on the podcast at some point in the future, to be determined. But thank you so much for being here on the Pharmacist Voice podcast to share how you use your voice as a pharmacist podcaster. Take care.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kim, for having me. Take care.
Thanks again to Dr. Christina Fontana for being my guest today. When Christina and I first started our recording, I wasn't sure if we would talk about She Rises into Desire podcast or the Healers and Healthcare show. We covered both, which makes me really happy. I hope you'll agree. Christina has a gift for public speaking. She really delivers. And we covered a lot in a 35-minute interview. Way to go, Christina. Not only did we hear Christina talk about why she started both shows, but we also heard her talk about who her audience is, what's in it for them, what she wants them to do with the information. Remember, have hope on the one show, She Rises into Desire podcast, and on the other show, the Healers and Healthcare show, be inspired by the role models on the show. You also learned that her blog on pharmacistcoach.com is the best place to find both shows, and then we heard her advice for new podcasters. The sidebar conversations were great too. On a personal level, I really enjoy that part. We learned about Christina's goal to impact 200 audiences in 2024, for example. And we also learned that she is due to have a baby girl in March. How exciting! I've got 2 kids. I forget what it's like to be pregnant. I am excited for Christina. I hope all goes well with the rest of her pregnancy and that she has a safe delivery, a healthy baby, and a full recovery. If you're the praying type, please keep the Fontana family in your prayers in the next 8 to 10 weeks. It is a special time for them. As we wrap this episode up, I want to say thank you again to Dr. Christina Fontana for being with me here on the Pharmacist Voice podcast, episode 262. And thank you for listening. I hope you now feel inspired to use your voice. Remember to check out the show notes on thepharmacistvoice.com. In the show notes today, I'll have links to Dr. Christina Fontana's website and social media links, my social media links, other episodes of the Pharmacist Podcasters Series here on the Pharmacist Voice podcast, and more. Lots of links today. Everything you need is on thepharmacistvoice.com. If you know someone who might like this episode, please share it with them. And if you like this podcast, please subscribe to or follow the Pharmacist Voice podcast on your favorite podcast player and YouTube to get each new episode right when it comes out. I'll be back next Friday, February 2nd, with a new drug name pronunciation episode. We're talking about PDE5 inhibitors just in time for Valentine's Day. Thanks again for listening today. I'll talk to you next Friday.